I have a really good case study of a guy that I skied with this week, and he was actually doing this movement where he was sitting right back and he had a lot of flexion at the knee. His ankle was totally open and he had his hands back down here by his side. And if you're actually flexed so far here, you do have a lot of hip flexion. I'm at maybe 90 degrees of knee flexion and then also 90 degrees of hip flexion here. So if I just pivoted this whole position forward without losing the hip flexion, I would actually be like a number 7. So when you sit back, you actually increase the hip flexion as well, but it's not in a good way. So he had a lot of hip flexion, he had a lot of knee flexion and no ankle flexion. So we had to shift the whole position forward, and all of these exercises that we're going over in this little section right here, he went from skiing in a back position all the way to skiing in a roughly centered position. So all of these runs here, the only focus he had was just to show me a good middle position and make a nice round steered turn. That was the goal for these filmed runs here that you're seeing now. The only thing that I asked him to do on the first few runs was to try and show me what he thought the middle position was after I'd explained it to him and after I'd put him in the position many times. And then we filmed it, and as you can see on the first run, it was really different to what he thought it was, and that's why we do video. But at the end of the first day, he made a huge improvement, and then by the end of the third day, he was on blue runs doing the same movement. So the goal is not to do any short turns yet, but once we have the position and once we're in the middle position, then we have the opportunity to start working on short turns. I had to constantly remind him every run for the first few days that he kept on reverting back to his old habits. And even on the last day when we started going a little bit faster, then the habits come back. So you have to be very mindful of all of these movements, and they're going to take time and they're going to take a lot of practice. You have to have that focus, you have to have that mental capacity to constantly think about it to make the changes. As soon as you start forgetting, you'll go back to the old habits, and that's quite normal, and it's something that you have to be quite aware of. So it doesn't take one day, it doesn't take 2 days, it takes many, many, many days of accumulative practice of the right thing that you're going to make these changes.